feel like I've wasted the last few years. I've wasted my whole life, and I've achieved nothing.
To the world around him. By the winter of 2002, 51-year-old Anthony John Hardy was little more than a sexually defunct diabetic with bipolar disorder. He eked out a living on a disability allowance. He had been bounced from hostels to hospitals to prisons. He was dependent on a cocktail of medications, drink and drugs. And the only relationships he maintained was with a series of anonymous sex workers. As a clinically depressed alcoholic, at best, his life would be an endless circle of therapy sessions, drug tests and relapses. At worst, he would sink into a pit of depression, arrests and homelessness. He was a nameless nobody who had achieved nothing. Only deep down in his sadistic little soul, Tony harbored a dark ambition. Feeling a supreme sense of superiority over the system he had manipulated and the experts he had duped. Having murdered his first victim, he had evaded justice and a lengthy prison sentence, receiving only a few months in hospital. With his second lying dead in a spare room, his evil obsession was just days away from completion. And seeking a third victim, soon he would be as infamous as his hero. The truth about the Camden Ripper may never be known, as his memory and details were deliberately vague, and his many illnesses masked the sadistic truth. He was a different person to different people at different times, for a very specific reason. And only by viewing his story from his perspective is it possible to see the four sides of the personality of Anthony Hardy: the alcoholic, the addict, the sadist, and the maniac. These are the four faces of the Camden Ripper. Part 3. Tony the Sadist.
The last 5 years, I could have spent it in a job or training at college. Instead, I spent it drinking tea in day centres and alcohol on the streets. The therapy, the alcohol sessions and the counselling has helped. But with no fixed address, it's impossible to achieve any real goals.
Tuesday the 24th of December 2002. Christmas Eve. Not a flake of snow fell on the soggy, litter-strewn streets of Camden. Instead, a cold, wet drizzle wafted the cheesy chirp of festive hits as it drifted on the breeze. From the window of his brightly coloured living room, the big bearded figure of Tony stared out onto Royal College Street, like a demented Santa Claus in a Hawaiian shirt and a set of Mr. Men socks. With his tree up, his baubles dangling, and his Christmas cards hanging on a string, there was a real sense of excitement. For everyone, it was about Christmas. But for Tony, it was about infamy. Chosen by Camden Council simply because it was available and suited a single man, it's ironic that the flat that they chose at 4 Heartland would be so perfect for the sickening whims of a prospective serial killer. From outside, being situated on the ground floor of a council block, Flat 4 had no immediate neighbours. Fully surrounded by a street, 2 stairwells and a passageway, it sat by itself, with a few frosted windows in the communal areas, a thick front door facing no others, and the 4 windows to his living room, bathroom and spare room were all set 6 feet off the ground. On the ground floor was a thin grey stairwell, illuminated by a single bulb which infrequently worked, and as it led to nowhere but other flats, unless you lived there, you had no reason to be there. As the only entrance or exit, opening the black front door, which had no glass pane, just a spy hole and a clumsily chalked 4, Should anyone peep inside, they would see nothing but a thin, vague hallway. There were no carpets or furniture, just a few childish daubings and the flat fronts of 4 closed doors. To the left was a white windowless bathroom with a bath, a sink and a toilet. And nothing else but a nail brush, a mop, the name Sarah in red paint, and 2 self-shot snaps of semi-clad ladies sunning it up in the park. Second right was a small messy kitchen with a fridge, an electric hob and some unwashed plates, which, like all the other rooms, resembled the flat of a depressed alcoholic. So should the council inspect it? To the uninitiated, it needed a good clean and a paint job, but there would be nothing of concern to report. In the brightly coloured living room, besides the cheap Christmas tree and the string of greetings cards, you'd see a stack of books on Jack the Ripper, not an odd fixation with death. You'd see 3 tellies, not a shrine to hardcore porn. A line of blank VHS tapes, not hours of simulated and real rapes. And an assortment of sticky spillages from a clumsy alcoholic, and not the mopped-up bloodstains of his last victim. Perhaps, having rejected his generous offer of a spare room, with sex as payment for the rent. Of course, the spare room was a perfect trap to lure in any vulnerable female lodger, as it was warm, dry, and almost free. With a double bed, a locked door, and a single window which opened a few inches. Although silenced by brick walls on all 4 sides, the neighbours were used to the sounds of seedy sex coming from this room. And besides, the lodger wouldn't be left alone, as Tony had a spare key. Only now, that offer wouldn't be on the table, as although he had masked the ominous stench of putrid decay with an endless supply of incense, and her grey tracksuit bottoms blocked the base of the door, Liz's body remained. 5 days dead and slowly decomposing, she was his to do with as he pleased. A passive woman who would never say no, would never flee, and would never mock his unruly erections. On the surface, this was not a home of a crazed psychopath. This was just a stepping stone for one of the council's most in-need residents. Oddly, although it was filled with art, the walls featured not a single image of nudity, sex, bondage or death. There was no cruelty, no blood, and nothing unnerving. But under the childish veneer of fishes, rainbows and smiling faces, everything he painted was born out of a deeply personal frustration or a dark sadistic secret. Some were spiritual or religious symbols, such as moons, stars and Celtic crosses. Some were aspirational, such as a doodle of a waving Tony, cooing, "Hey little lady." Many were names, like Sarah, Sandra, Jane or Tracy, whereas others were only initials. But many were specific, as besides his bank of tellies was a painting of a lady's face, her nose replaced with a capital A single red tear pouring down her eye, and her look was unmistakably Sally. The flat was not only his home, it was a perfect place to undertake his sadistic crimes in absolute privacy. But should it be taken away and he be forced back into hostels, his dream of infamy would collapse. Released on the 14th of November 2002, Tony played the part of a typical, if flawed, outpatient perfectly. He attended his therapy sessions, but missed a few, as many alcoholics do. He was an active and well-behaved participant at the diorama art group, and as requested, he enrolled in a photography and IT course at the Milton Skills Centre, with his plan to get himself a regular job. Or so he would say. Barely a month before Sally's death, Tony had taken the precautionary step to ensure that no one would unearth his dark ambition. In an unusual step, he requested that his weekly meetings with his care coordinator occur in a cafe around the corner, rather than in his flat. And given that she was female and he had a history of violent sexual assaults, it seemed a sensible measure for her safety. As seen during his sectioning, his sadism could bubble to the surface at any point without warning. In 1992, Tony was once again evicted from the Arlington House Hostel in Camden. Only then, it wasn't for his drunkenness, but for a particularly savage trick he had a cruel fondness for, which earned him the eerie nickname of the Bone Crusher. Creeping up behind a resident, he would trap them in a bear hug and squeeze them tight until they passed out, causing bruising, fractures, and asphyxiation. Even back then, it was said that he got a kick out of stopping someone breathing. Tony's sexual sadism stemmed back to the 1970s, with his increased need for sex workers. The more he used, the less his addiction was satisfied, and the rougher the sex he craved, all of which led to strangulation, manipulation, and the full physical and psychological control of another human being. Wary of his sadistic desires, many girls refused to see him again, no matter how desperate they were. But many would later state that he would brag,
"You mark my words. One day, I'm going to be famous."
So it seems strange that, although he was a highly volatile man prone to manic episodes, whose whole plan was almost scuppered owing to a leaky tap, that he had told no one his plan. The nearest anyone got to the truth was in the casual chats in the cafe with his old pal, Maureen Reeves. Friends for 10 years, there was no love or longing between them. They were just two like-minded people who enjoyed each other's company and regularly chatted over a cup of tea. To Maureen, Tony was charming and smart, with no hint of anger or violence. If anything, he was a gentleman with a big heart and a kind soul. But with no knowledge of his past, she was unaware that, being comfortable in her presence, he was unwittingly laying out his plan before her. Being obsessed with the East End serial killer Jack the Ripper, Tony could talk for hours about Jack, about his skills, his methods, his motives, his infamy, and his legend. To some, that hobby may seem a bit odd, but everybody has a pastime, and many have an obsession with true crime. And besides, it distracted him from drinking and getting depressed. Only Tony's plan wasn't without its mistakes. And the biggest wasn't the body in his room, but his neighbour upstairs. On the night that Sally's corpse was discovered in his spare room, sweating and shaking, Tony's arrest wasn't the real reason for his nervousness, but that his plan had stalled before it had even begun. In a moment of uncontrolled mania, in which previously he had slashed his neighbour's tyres, bent her wipers, and posted her an abusive note, having attacked her door with spray paint and acid, a key issue concerning his discharge from hospital was the risk that Tony posed to his neighbour and the other residents at Heartland. On the 4th of July 2002, as an inpatient at the Cardigan ward, Tony received a notice of possession informing him of his imminent eviction. Incarcerated and helpless, his model behaviour was not only vital to get himself discharged, but also to rally the doctors in his fight to save his flat. When asked, Tony would state,
"I feel like I've wasted the last few years. Don't get me wrong, the therapy has helped. But with no fixed address, it's impossible to achieve any real goals.
To allay their fears, he said of his neighbour,
"I've no ill feelings towards her. It wasn't her, it was the drink."
With the eviction delayed, the doctors stood up for their patient, rightfully declaring, "Mr. Hardy's accommodation has caused great concern. There is nothing at present to convince us that detention in a hospital continues to be necessary. He has a natural human right to be treated in the surroundings which encourage and support his own efforts." With his eviction caught in a legal dispute, on the 14th of November 2002, Tony returned to his home at Fort Hartland. It was a perfect little flat for a prospective serial killer. But his future there was uncertain. Whether the threat of homelessness ignited a fire in his belly is unknown. Whether his hospitalization caused his bottled-up urges to burst is uncertain. Or whether his urgency was owing to a sick sense of unfinished business, a macabre little anniversary, or as a Christmas gift to himself, no one will ever know. But 2 innocent women would die in the space of a week, with his third of particular significance. On the 6th of December 2002, from a stall in Camden Market, Tony purchased a set of Mr. Men socks featuring the grinning yellow face of Mr. Happy. Either this was Christmas shopping, or it was premeditation. On the 14th of December at 6:34 p.m, in the Sainsbury's on Camden Road, he bought a large black roll of heavy-duty bin bags, the kind used for house clearances or gardening. Only Tony wasn't moving out, and he didn't have a garden. On the 18th of December, he severed his ties with the Alcohol Advisory Service by writing them a Christmas card in which he scrawled,
"I don't need you anymore. Thanks for all your help."
And on the 19th of December, at an unspecified time by King's Cross Station, he met Elizabeth Selina Valad. Bludgeoned, strangled, posed and photographed. As no one had seen, heard or reported her missing, her murder was as perfect as possible. Being on his best behaviour, there was less chance of the police disturbing his sadistic crimes, and having cunningly evaded a lengthy custodial sentence, Tony was back exactly where he had been 11 months earlier. In the same room, on the same bed, with the same plan. Only this time, unlike with Sally, Liz was his to do with as he pleased, for as long as he pleased. On Friday the 20th of December, the next day, sensing a moment of mania rising inside him, and as before, fearing it could all be ruined by an angry outburst over something as trivial as a leaky tap, Tony went to church. Telling the rector that he was at an emotional rock bottom, the cleric prayed for his immortal soul and noticed, but never questioned, that around his neck Tony hung a key to a locked room in his flat. Later, he returned to the Cardigan ward to collect his medication. The mania passed, and as he walked among the Christmas shoppers, he headed home to his tree, his cards, and his corpse. All the while, mulling over who would be next. But then it didn't matter who she was. What was significant was her number. Bridget Cathy Mcclellan was born on the 31st of August 1968 as the youngest of 5 children to Roderick, a civil servant, and their mother, a housewife. Born in the tranquil peace of New Zealand, age 5, the family uprooted to the smoggy rain-sodden streets of London. Bridget was a flame-haired, pale-skinned, and cheeky-faced young girl who loved to laugh and loved to dance. And being a real beacon of brightness and warmth, she illuminated even the gloomiest of rooms. Only just like her lovely smile, it masked a short life, which would be tinged with struggles and sadness. Barely out of her teens, she met a man, she fell in love, and together they gave birth to a little baby boy. But with deep frictions in their box-fresh relationship, it fell apart, and the father left. In 1992, aged 24, she met a Moroccan painter and decorator called Salil Abdel Amzil. 1 year later they married. 2 years later another baby boy was born. But by 1998, the marriage had collapsed, and Salil had moved out. Gripped with depression and living on benefits with 2 boys to raise alone, Bridget struggled. To lift her mood, she was prescribed antidepressants, but when they failed, illicit drugs followed. For a while, she was coping, with friends describing her as lovely, great fun, and a really good mum. But infrequent drug use quickly consumed her life, and being addicted to crack, she sold sex to feed her habit. By the winter of 2002, being evicted from her 5th-floor council flat in Camden, hopelessly addicted to crack and with convictions as a King's Cross sex worker, she had no home, no life, and her 2 little boys had been taken into care. The bright, bubbly Bridget had gone, and in her place stood a gaunt yellow shell, all rough and ragged, like a faint ghost with a painted-on smile. On the night of Tuesday the 24th of December 2002, as the world wrapped their presents, Bridget was seen by King's Cross Station. It was Christmas Eve. But to this sullen, shivering lady, who was 34 but looked nearer 50, it was just another night in need of a fix. With another sex-obsessed stranger, another squalid flat, another 30 quid for an uncomfortable fuck on a grimy bed. And in another doorway, she would cook up those caustic little rocks to forget her sadness and dull her pain. But only for a short while. How they met is unknown. But just like the others, no one saw or heard her as she entered for Heartland. Inside Tony's flat, the radiator's warmth must have been reassuring, as was his Santa-like beard, his twinkling tree, and his offerings of mulled wine and a mince pie. In the air hung an overpowering smell of incense, but then again, the cinnamon suited this festive theme. The oddly obsessive girl-based art on the walls, the discarded pair of women's grey tracksuit bottoms blocking the base of the locked spare room, and even the putrid whiff of Liz's slowly decomposing body after 5 days in a warm flat couldn't have unsettled Bridget, as there were no screams, no signs of a struggle, and at 8:45 p.m, a neighbour said they heard the rhythmic sounds of sex. And then, nothing. That night, like a sick and twisted Christmas treat to himself, Tony fulfilled his sadistic fantasy, as perhaps with his hefty bulk crushing her tiny chest, at the point of climax, he strangled Bridget to death. Her name meant nothing to him, unlike her number. As being his 3rd victim, Tony had achieved his grisly goal by graduating from the forgettable level of a murderer to the infamous and exclusive ranks of a serial killer. Only with infamy never guaranteed, he knew that his dark ambition was incomplete. On Christmas Day, within the sweaty recesses of his spare room, Tony played in his own little toy box, as on his bed lay 2 life-size dolls, both naked and spread-eagled. One was a pale-skinned redhead, with fuller hips, natural boobs, a ligature mark on her neck, and a black NY baseball cap to disguise her reddening and irrelevant face. The other was once an olive-skinned beauty, with dark short hair, a stunning smile, and an expensive boob job. Only now her mottled legs were topped off with a set of Mr. Men's socks, and her purple bloated head was hidden behind the red rubber of a devil's mask. Bridget and Liz were his to do with as he pleased. To dress, to undress, to kiss, and to violate. And as Boxing Day passed, he posed both ladies with their heads cocked coyly towards him, snapping his camera to capture a sick souvenir to be tugged over later. As the 2 luscious but anonymous lesbians now looked as if they lured their sexual saviour to bed. But his infamy was yet to be cemented. Wearing a pair of yellow marigolds, Tony dragged their bodies into the small white sparseness of his bathroom. With the cold tap running, he used only what he could find lying around. 3 kitchen knives and an old rusty hacksaw as he severed their limbs at the weakest point, the joints. Each cut was clean and unrushed, with no rips, tears or slashes. And as if he was filleting a fish, he took his time, slicing through every ball, socket and vertebrae. So when those neat, orderly pieces of dissected women were stacked together, it was hard to tell which part belonged to who. With 2 dismembered heads, 4 feet, 4 hands, 4 arms, 8 bits of 4 legs, and 2 torsos cleanly cut into halves across the ribcage. In neatly wrapped bundles, Tony placed each part in a black bin bag and sealed it tight with duct tape. On Sunday the 29th of December 2002, in broad daylight, Tony disposed of the lumpy black bin bags in the council's green metal dumpsters for public waste. On the corner of Camden Road and Plender Street, just 1 street from his flat, an upper torso, a right arm, a left arm and a foot was dropped in amongst the rat-infested mess of food waste and empty bottles. In a similar dumpster, he slung a pair of legs at the back of the College Arms pub, just a few doors down from his home, and directly opposite the Mornington unit. Anthony Hardy's dark ambition was finally complete. As with 3 sex workers dead, and their body parts scattered about the London streets, just like his hero, he was officially a serial killer. But to achieve the true infamy that he desired so much, the next step was beyond his control. And worse still, to get it, he would need to wait. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to Murder Mile. The final part of this 4-part series into the Camden Ripper continues next week. But to know more about this case, stay tuned till after the break. Before that, a big thank you to my new Patreon supporters, who are Ruth Scannell, Kristen Parrish, Darren Scott, Tom Davies, Donna DeBrino, and Erin Howe. I thank all of you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the special photos and videos which go with this series via Patreon. Plus, a special thank you to Selena Dean and Meta Kongstad for your very kind donations via the Murder Mile eShop. My belly is now full of custard tarts. Murder Mile was researched, written and performed by myself, with the main musical themes written and performed by Eric Stein and John Books of Cult with No Name. Thank you for listening, and sleep well. Oh, felt longer. That felt a lot longer. Oh, hello everyone. Extra mile time. Oh, dear God, thank God. Oh, it's a nightmare, that one. Trying to record that, and the problem is, all across West London, I've mentioned this before, but we have these green parakeets that I think. Well, the myth is that there was a film production being done either over at Shepperton or something like that. People still don't know what production it was. There's a lot of myths around it, but they were using green parakeets, and because it was outdoors, that obviously the parakeets were like, oh, I might disappear, so they all buggered off. So right across West London, you've got, if you look up into the trees, you'll see lots of grey birds. We have lots of grey birds here, obviously, but eventually, every so often, you'll see kind of like lime green things flying around, and it's these parakeets, and they're very nice to look at, but they've got a horrible screech. And I've been trying to record this, and above me is all the parakeets, and they're like, and then behind me is Coot is having a bit of a go today. He was fighting with his mate. I could hear him bouncing his mate off my boat, which was really annoying. And then two ladies decided to stop outside my boat and have a good old yak for about 20 minutes. And like, no. So my piles are playing me up. It's like, oh. Anyway, so that's done. That's that episode done. Hope you enjoyed it. That was something different. I'm going to just put on my coffee. I might have tea. Oh, what am I having? Tea or coffee? Tea, I think. Oh, let's do a tea. It's tea o'clock. My mouth has gone all dry from too much coffee. Too much coffee. There we go. Oh, try and open the window. Pop my tea in. There we go. 2 sugars. Got to be done. Lovely jubbly. And what else? What am I going to have? I'm going to have that. Oh. There we go. Oh. I realised I don't have any custard tarts anymore because I ate them all last night because they were nice and cold. So I thought, better to eat them when they're cold. So what have I got? I've got McVitie's clubs, which I think I mentioned before used to be Jacob's clubs, but obviously they've been bought out. Very nice. Milk chocolate covered crunchy biscuit with an orange flavoured cream. Yum. Orange ones are good. Minty ones are good as well. Might have to treat myself, but they're very nice. Right. What else is happening at the moment? Obviously we got Christmas coming up. That's good. Christmas not too far away. That's good. Looking forward to that. I think I've got 9 more days of this to go. I'm pretty exhausted now. I've been working doing Murder Mile since I think I started on the 8th of January and I haven't stopped. I think I've had 1 day off. So I'll be finished, I reckon, on the 20th of December. I can't wait. My brain is just fat. Got nothing left at the moment. So looking forward to just having those couple of days of just doing nothing, which would be good. I don't think the archives aren't fully open yet. Or they're open, but they're only open for a short period of time, like 4 hours, which is not much. And also, I think London is about to go into proper lockdown, like tier 3. So not that means anything. Tier 2, tier 1, tier 3 is all bollocks. But I think we're going to get heavier restrictions next week, so we shall see. Anyway, what else is happening? It's winter, it's cold, so I've got the fire on, which is good. Because I've had a stack of old paperwork, all medical files and stuff like that from Mum and Gran, which now I don't need anymore, and they've been sitting there, and I haven't got a shredder, and you can't bin them. So I was like, so I've had like a big mountainous amount of paperwork, and now I'm like, every night I get to burn the files. I get to go, right, I don't need you anymore, you're gone, which has been very good. Very rewarding. So now I'm down to just a couple of papers now, which is good. Just all the important stuff now, so that's good. What else is done? I made a chili con carne. It is winter, so I've made a nice vegan chili con carne because the vegan mince is very good. It's very hot and it's very spicy, and it came out this morning out the other end, and I was like, oh, it's definitely chili time, isn't it? That was really good. I enjoyed that. But it's perfect cold weather food. I don't put any rice with it. Last night I just had it with crackers, like Columbo used to do. Columbo's favourite meal. Chili and crackers, and it's very nice. So I'm going to have that. I might have a bit of rice with it tonight, or I've got some sprouts to go with it as well. Sprout. That's all good. I've just got to do a reminder about Crime Con for next year. I know, I'm sorry everyone, I know many of you are getting really sick of the sound of Crime Con now, because many of us podcasters are advertising it. It's contractual, we have to do it. I'm just going to get my water
But let's pop that in there. Let my tea stew for a bit. But it's going to be an exciting event. We are contractually obliged to kind of advertise it once a month. And I know, I'm sorry to everyone, because I'm sure if you listen to a lot of true crime, you're getting this from all angles at the moment. So just going to whiz through this very quickly. Don't forget, it's Saturday the 12th and 13th of June next year. It's the world's #1 true crime event. So it's going to be like 50 hours worth of content there. Loads of different podcasters are going to go there. Me and 2 other well-known podcasters are going to be doing a presentation there, which is going to be very exciting. We've already planned out what we're going to do. It's going to be, I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, there's going to be authors there, journalists, filmmakers, real-life survivors of true crime, criminologists, and loads of podcasters as well. We're all going to be there. Obviously, all the good ones are going to be there, all the best. So if you want to come along, they've extended the early bird tickets. I think originally it was going to stop around December time. They've extended it to right to the start of January. So you get 10% off if you use the crime code discount code MILE, MILE. Just go there. All tickets are protected by the COVID protection promise, which is great. So if it all goes tits up because the virus hasn't buggered off, therefore it's not a problem, you'll get your full money back. Not a problem at all. So yes, as always there's a link in the show notes, so have a look at that. Right, that was that. Sorry about that. Hope to meet all of you there at some point, and when Murder Mile Walks are starting again, I hope to see all of you there as well, which will be good. Hopefully that'll be end of February. I'm holding off till the end of February because I suspect that we're going to have a third lockdown, or as the British government do, they don't call it lockdown, they call it extra restrictions. Right, bollocks. Anyway, so there'll be extra restrictions in January, so I'm guessing that I don't want to set up the tours and then have to shut them down again, because every time I set them up, obviously when people buy tickets, it costs me to the money. It costs me money to process the tickets, and when people refund the tickets, it costs me money as well. So like a £15 ticket will cost me £3, and that's £3 for someone not to turn up. So every time I set up a tour and then shut it all down, it costs me money every time. So I get charged 30 quid for one tour that I'm not running. It's a lot. It tots up. So that's why I'm being cautious. I'm not going to set up my tours until like end of February, start of March. Right, let's do some questions. Let's whiz through this. So question number 1. What was Tony's nickname at Arlington Hostel? What was Tony's nickname at the Arlington Hostel? It was actually the Arlington House Hostel. Correcting myself there. Question 2. What tools did Tony use to cut up the bodies? It's really annoying now. The birds have shut up. And the guy... Oh, that was a burp, sorry. And the guy with the leaf blower who was outside as well, he's got disappeared as well. Now I'm on this bit. They've all decided to disappear. And the ladies who were yakking have disappeared as well. Typical. Question 3. Bridget was born in what country? Question 4. Bridget was child number what of how many? I.e., how many brothers and sisters did she have and what order was she? Question 5. Where did Tony buy his bin bags? I've been there many times before. Question 6. What job did Bridget's husband do? Question 7. How did Tony sever his ties with the Alcohol Advisory Service? Question 8. What was round Tony's neck when the rector prayed for his immortal soul? Question 9. What was below the artwork of Sarah in red writing in his bathroom? And question 10. This isn't in the episode, but I thought it might be interesting because it popped up in my research. I almost added it to the episode, but I didn't. What were the big movies that were on British television, i.e. BBC and ITV, on Christmas Day when Tony was posing both of those bodies? We'll come back to that later on. Classic Christmas movies. Right, what else we got? Let's dive into some extra things in here to see how long I've done so far. Okay. So part of Tony's precautionary measures, as mentioned, he'd got his key worker would come around to check that he was okay, that he was doing well, and they came to a kind of an agreement that instead of going round to his flat to see him, that they would meet in his cafe. To check that Tony was doing well. Obviously, this was kind of beneficial for her because she was female, and he, as mentioned, he got a history of sexual assaults and stuff like that, and he was an alcoholic. But it was also beneficial for him because it's like the last thing he kind of wanted was someone, his care coordinator, coming around and looking at his flat and seeing things that maybe they shouldn't. So they had regular meetings. It was done in a cafe just around the corner. It wasn't really specified which cafe it was. There is actually a cafe just around the back of Tony's house, so I'm guessing it was that one. It was on Crowndale Road, but whether it was that one, I don't know. But even on the care coordinator's notes would state, met with Tony in the cafe yesterday at 3:30. Tony states that he feels very well. On his scale of 0 to 20, he says he is about a 12, but is sleeping 8 to 9 hours a night and does not feel manic. The rate and tone of his speech is normal. Tony requested that I check his lithium levels, which are within the normal limits. Relayed back the information to Tony this morning. So as seen, he knows how to play people. And he plays them well. He really does. It's kind of weird. This is why I decided to do the 4 phases of the Camden Ripper, because there's no definitive Anthony Hardy. I feel there's kind of like, as you've got episode 1, you've got the victim side of him, which he plays up a lot, and then you've kind of got you've got him as an alcoholic, as a homeless man. You've got him with his mental health issues, which kind of swing about in different directions. It's hard to pin down exactly who he is. You've got his sadistic side. Is he playing people, or is it just luck? Is it because they see him as a victim, therefore he's able to play the victim side? Is he a very, very clever manipulator, or is he just lucky? I mean, you've got to look at the stuff, especially after Sally Rose White's death. That was just luck. The police pretty much had him for murder. Pretty much, they were pretty much happy with that case. They knew that everything they had was murder, but as we'll get into in part 4, you got the pathologist who said no, it was a natural death. And as the police said, if the pathologist says it's a natural death, there's nothing they can do. The investigation collapses because the pathologist has said it's not suspicious, it's an accident. That's fine. So the police did a second autopsy on that. They requested a second autopsy, which was reconducted by Dr. Freddie Patel, who'd done the first autopsy, which I think is kind of weird. You would think they would go. Do you think that the system would say, right, we need a different? If you're getting a second opinion, you need to have a second opinion from a different person. Like if you go to your doctors and you say, and the doctor says something, and you go, I want a second opinion, you get a different doctor. Maybe in the same practice, but you still get a different doctor. But a pathologist in something as big as this. Anyway, so the pathologist said, no, it's definitely a heart. She had a heart attack. So Tony was really lucky in a lot of different ways. But yeah, no, he was able to go into the community, live a normal life. He went to the upstairs studio at the Diorama, which was a voluntary arts group. He joined an art class. Everyone said he was very nice. No one had any real causes for concern when they were there. They mentioned once that he was talking about cannibalism, but that was only in relation to the film Silence of the Lambs, which, I probably mention Silence of the Lambs at least once a month. Once a month, I go, it puts the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again. So, I mean, does that make me a serial killer? No, it just makes people who enjoy interesting films. I try not to give away too much here. So as mentioned in here in the Arlington house Hostel, Tony was there for a while. He was evicted on many occasions for not only for beating up residents and hitting hotel staff, but as mentioned in a previous episode, for making sexually inappropriate comments. and even suggesting that they all make pornographic videos. They tried many times to get court proceedings to get him to leave. It was very difficult for them, but they managed to do it. Two of the workers who were there, they were the ones who mentioned about his infamous nickname, which is in one of the questions, which I can't mention to now. But this was the fact that he would... I'll explain more when we do the questions, because I don't want to give away too much. You probably all remember anyway. It was quite a memorable nickname. As with Tony as well, it's still uncertain at this moment whether he would go into King's Cross to pick up the prostitutes, or whether he would call them, because many had like cards in phone boxes, or he would pick up a lot of Russian and Eastern European prostitutes from Loot. There's lots of contact ads in there, so he would go to a phone box because he didn't have a mobile. Don't forget, this is 2002. I only had my first one in '99, so so there's no real way to track him down through that as well. So that's how. So we're still not too sure whether he would lead the ladies to his house or whether they would just turn up. That was something that he would do. He used Loot quite a lot to pick up his sex workers. We've learnt a little bit more about Maureen Reeves, his friend. As mentioned, it's kind of weird that he had a real horrible perspective on women and what they were about. To him, they were just about sex and disposable, and he's quite a violent man towards women. And yet with Maureen, even though they didn't have, it was very much platonic. There was nothing romantic between them, no love between them. It was kind of just friends. They met each other, liked each other. They would chat and talk, and it's kind of interesting, a friendship that went on for at least 10 years. And so it's only really there that we can see kind of his kind of Jack the Ripper obsession coming out, because he was so comfortable with Maureen. There was no. I think that's the interesting thing about that relationship, is with doctors, with social workers, with psychiatrists, with the police. There's a game for him. He's thinking about the game. He's thinking about his goal. He's thinking about what he needs to say and what he doesn't need to say. But with Maureen, she's just a friend, so they can kind of chat, and it's not really a problem. Obviously, she knew nothing about his past, which we'll go into in part 4. She knew nothing about his present. He's just a nice guy, she said, very down to earth. Obviously, she was hugely shocked when obviously all the details finally came out. But to him, she did say that he would often brag about the fact that he felt that he was more intelligent than doctors and psychiatrists and things like that. He'd got out of the psychiatric unit when many people are kind of there for months and years, and he felt that he was a much stronger, much smarter man. A big part about this story obviously is about him risking losing his home. A lot of people kind of ignore this, but I felt this was kind of important, because if you think about it, when he's in the hostels, he can't really do that much. If he has these goals and ambitions right early on in life, there's not really a lot he can do. If you're in a hostel, you almost certainly don't have your own room. It's kind of bunk beds. It's shared with about 20, 30 people. I was in a hostel years ago. It was shared with about 50 people. They're not nice. It's so that's really why he did have supported living space as at King's Terrace. But even with that, that's kind of, there's still a hostel manager there keeping an eye on him, the CCTV, the stuff like that. So even though he would bring back sex workers, which was against the rules, it's still difficult for him to do that. So when he actually got his home at 4 Heartland, that was kind of brilliant for him. And this is the big description at the start of this episode, explaining why it's the perfect house for a serial killer. When I was looking around the outside of it, I thought everything about this is perfect, really. There's a lot of details here that are kind of unwittingly perfect for a prospective serial killer, as he was, because he'd only killed 2 by the time we start this episode. This is all about him becoming the 3rd one. Sorry, I've just cut my arm, so I'm licking off the blood. Lovely. Dogs do it, so it must be good for humans. Yeah. So when all this was going out, and obviously when he was in the Cardigan ward and he was given his eviction notice, the doctors were kind of helping him fight this, as were his lawyers, because he's got court-appointed lawyers for this. And obviously the people at Heartland were like, we don't want him to come back. He's a weirdo. He's suspected of this murder, Sally Rose White. We suspect there's probably more. We don't want him back in our community, which makes sense. You would understand that totally. So they wanted to evict him and wanted to find him somewhere else to live. They were looking at other hostels, and Tony would always say, like, there was a hostel called St. Martin's. What's it called? St. Martin of Tours. And he was like, no, I don't like that place. I can't live there. It's too strict. And I want someone with a more liberal regime. And he kept going and going. And this was dragging on for so long, which is why, even though his original eviction was going to be, I think it was 12th of August, by the December, still no move on that. It kept being delayed, kept being put back. So what else was there? I think that was it. Yeah, I think that was it. I don't want to go into too much because obviously next week we've got part 4, and part 4 has got some. Part 4 we're gonna finish the story, but we're also gonna go back to where it all began. Ooh, exciting! I haven't even got my tea yet. Look at my tea. My tea's still sitting there like a little tea thing waiting to be drunk. Let's have that. And I didn't put in enough water, although it is nicely stewed now. There we go. A nice dark tea. Yeah, get in, have it. There we go. Oh, this'll come too late anyway. But as I record this now, on December the 11th, this is the birthday of the real Police Constable Arsenal Guinness of the Metropolitan Blood. So happy birthday, Mr. Guinness. I hope you're having a lovely day and that it involves lots of Guinness and Arsenal maybe scoring a goal for once. I know, miracles do happen. Right, okie dokie. Let's answer the questions. Question number 1. What was Tony's nickname at the Arlington House Hostel? It was the Bone Crusher. Ooh. And that when you think about it, that was a decade before the murders even happened. So there's a lot of sadistic tendencies in him anyway. Not just with the crush asphyxiation of sex workers, but also other people as well. So yeah, he's an odd man. Question number 2. What tools did Tony use to cut up the bodies? They were a hacksaw and 3 knives. They weren't freshly bought before the murders. When you look at them, they're clearly just standard kitchen equipment that he got in his kitchen. One was looked like a bread knife, one looked like a small meat knife, one looked like a vegetable knife. The hacksaw was just the kind of thing that you'd have around. It looks a little bit rusty as well. Question 3. Bridget was born in which country? And the answer was New Zealand. She was born in New Zealand? That was my impression there. There we go. Question 4. Bridget was child number what of how many? And the answer is she was the youngest of 5. Question number 5. Where did Tony buy his bin bags? He bought it at the Sainsbury's on Camden Road. They know this because he used his Nectar card when he was purchasing them, and he did his he paid in cash, but he used his Nectar card to get his points. So therefore, when he was finally arrested, they as the police do, they check all the little details, and they got his Nectar card, and there it was, time and place, and then he was also caught on CCTV as well. Question 6. What job did Bridget's husband do? He was a painter and decorator. Sorry, boat going past. Question 7. How did Tony sever his ties with the Alcohol Advisory Service? He sent them a Christmas card in which he said, I don't need you anymore. Question 8. What was round Tony's neck when the rector prayed for him? It was a key to a locked room in his flat. I wonder which room that was. Question number 9. What was below the artwork of the words Sarah in red writing in his bathroom? There were 2 black and white photos of ladies sunning it up in the local park. Lovely. Obviously, because he was a fan of photography, he would go around with his camera and take pictures. And obviously those would be pictures of ladies who he didn't know. Very nice. Question number 10. This is a question that's not in the episode, but you can take a punt at if you like. So, what films were on British television, i.e. BBC and ITV, on that Christmas day when Tony was posing both of those bodies? They were A Bug's Life, The Mummy, Muppets Christmas Carol, and Free Willy. You see, the TV channels know how to keep us entertained. It's always the same every Christmas, isn't it? You think, oh, I hope there's going to be a great Christmas movie, and then you look and you go, oh, okay, well, it's... Thank God we've all got streaming services, or in my case, DVDs. I'll pop on some DVDs because I don't have streaming services. I don't know what I'll watch. I'll watch something nice, something funny. One Christmas I decided to watch all zombie films. That was good. Anyway, that's that done. Hope you enjoyed that. Next week, obviously, we have the final part of the 4 Faces of the Camden Ripper, which is all very exciting. Looking forward to wrapping that up, but also looking forward to not having Anthony Hardy in my head anymore, because it's not nice having him in there. He's a bit of a weird man. It's not a nice place to be. It's not a nice place to be thinking about him doing his things and then trying to work out what his motivation is and what he's about. And it'd be nice when he's gone. He's not a nice person. Anyway, so that's done. I'm going to start editing this and do my things. And then I'll be done in 9 days. That's brilliant. Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to have some fun. Oh, I could get drunk all day. I've already got my Christmas booze lined up. There's some nice, expensive beers and stouts that I've been purchasing. I've been storing them away. There's one called Layer Cake, which has got a kind of it's a stout with a chocolate with a marshmallow on top. Not on top, but it's got a flavour very nice. And then I picked up one yesterday, which is a Tia Maria flavoured stout. They're all quite dark, so I'm going to have some of those, some nice light beers as well. I'm going to enjoy myself. Ooh, and I've already started picking up treats for Christmas Day as well, because that's what Christmas should be about. Is just enjoying yourself, having fun, watching some movies. I know some people go, I hate being by myself at Christmas, but I quite often spend Christmas by myself and I quite enjoy it. You know why? Because you're not tied into anything. You don't have to be forced to. Like some people, they have to go here. They wake up and they have to do this, and then they have to at 11 o'clock they have to go somewhere, and then at 2 they have to be somewhere else, and then they have to put the turkey, and it's all. And you go around the house and it's just a bun fight, and their head is just messed up, and it's like they're not enjoying themselves. They're sweating, and then by 12 they're already having their first argument. At 3 they have the second argument. Whereas me, because most Christmases I'm by myself, really, I quite enjoy it because I wake up and I go, right, bacon sandwich, fondant fancies, crack open a beer, pop on a movie, do my calls. Got to do the calls and go, yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone. Okay, let me speak to the next one. Bah, 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 bah. And then I can just veg the day and I can have a nice walk. And, it's peace, it's quiet. There's no stress about it. And then I treat myself to something nice for dinner. And, you can, there's no rules you can pick out. You can start the day with a nice sticky toffee pudding if you want to, because it's your Christmas day. There's no rules. You can do whatever you like. That's what I like about Christmas. Is just not stressing about shit. I never get that. People who have Christmas and they just look like they're not having a good time. Just enjoy yourself. And if anyone is if anyone is just trying to bring you down because they insist that you stick to a tradition, stick up your middle finger and tell them to fuck off. Just enjoy yourself. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm gearing up for Christmas. Amy and Cole is coming around in the morning. My mate Cole's coming around for bacon sandwich on his journey to his folks' house. And then when Amy comes over, Amy, the plan, Pyjamas all day, watch movies, drink, games. No real stress. That's what we're going to do. A nice, easy day. Yay. Right, good. That's me done. I'm going to start editing this episode and then have myself some fun. Have yourselves a good week. Be good. Stay safe. Don't get murdered by serial killers. Okay, lots of love. Bye-bye.